Good morning, everyone. Namaste. This is going to be a trigger warning for PTSD and depression. So if you're not prepared to deal with that, that's okay. Go ahead and scroll. I'm going to call in Archangel Michael to cleanse this space, to clear out all negative and lower vibrations from our mind, body, and soul, home and hearts, placing the white light of protection around us with this blue seal. We are going to be reading more, guys, out of The Body Keeps the Score. It says Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma. Now I'm going to be skipping some of this stuff just for, I don't want to traumatize people. So I'm going to do my best when I'm skipping it. But if it sounds weird, that's because I'm skipping some things. It says, as I arrived in the intake office that day, I saw Bill surrounded by the worried doctors who were preparing him to inject him with powerful antipsychotic drugs. I hate to say that, and ship him off to locked ward. They described his symptoms and asked my opinion, having worked in a previous job on a ward specializing in the treatment of schizophrenia. I was intrigued. Something about the diagnosis did not sound right. I asked Bill if I could talk with him after hearing his story. I unwittingly paraphrased something from Sigmund Freud had said about trauma in 1895. I think this man is suffering from his memories. I told Bill I would try to help him, and after offering him some medication to control his panic, I asked him if he would be willing to come back in a few days later to participate in my nightmare study. He did agree. As a part of the study, we gave participants the Rorschach test. Unlike tests that require answers straightforward questions, responses from the Rorschach are also almost impossible to fake. The Rorschach provides us with a unique way to observe how people construct a mental image from what is basically a meaningless stimulus, a blotting, because humans are meaning-making creatures. We have a tendency to create some sort of image or story out of these ink blots. Just as when we are on a meadow on a beautiful summer day and we see some clouds floating high above, what people make out of these blots can tell us a lot about how their mind works. So just as you look at the clouds and you see things in the clouds, you can look at the ink blots and see things. And then that helps them to understand how your mind is working. On seeing the second card of the Rorschach test, Bill explained in horror that he was seeing something that he had seen in Vietnam, where it involved a child and there was a bad situation that occurred. So when he looked at the ink block, that was what he was seeing. And I'm going to bypass some of this stuff. So he started panting with his sweat beading in his forehead, and he was in a panic similar to the one that was initially brought him to the VA clinic in the first place. Although I had heard the veterans describing the flashback, this was the first time I actually witnessed one. In that very moment in my office, Bill was obviously seeing the same image, smelling the same smells, and feeling the same physical sensation that he had felt in the original event. And 10 years after, helplessly holding a baby in his arms, Bill was reliving the trauma in response to an ink blot. So I felt like that was very important and that we shouldn't bypass that, because that is something not only I've experienced from having PTSD, but also, studying it. But honestly, the studying, it doesn't really put it to justice, because it's a full body experience that you experience in that moment, and is very vivid and real. And the reason being is because subconsciously you can't deal with that when it first initially the trauma first initially happens. So you shove it up into your subconscious, And when you are being triggered and it's coming out in that moment, it is pulling it from your subconscious so that you can deal with it in that moment. That's why it's important to deal with it and not just keep it shoved up there, because it does need to be dealt with in a professional setting. So I hope this helps. I love you all. Have a blessed day, and namaste.